The cowboy found his neighbor's abandoned black cook in a blizzard, her body nearly frozen against the woodshed as howling winds threatened to bury them both alive. The mountain man was already marked for failure by his frontier town, a broken widower whose debts and isolation made him an outcast, destined for ruin. They whispered he'd lose everything within the year, another casualty of the unforgiving territory. But the trembling woman he pulled from death's grip carried secrets that could transform both their fates. She possessed knowledge that men would kill for and skills that could build empires, yet neither knew the explosive truth hidden in her past. Their survival now depended on a partnership that would either elevate them beyond imagination or destroy them completely when the town's buried sins surfaced. Would their desperate alliance unlock unthinkable prosperity, or would the forces conspiring against them ensure their mutual destruction? Before we continue, comment where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will publish a story there. Winter gripped Ironwood Creek like an iron fist. The mining town huddled against the Colorado mountains as another business shuttered its doors. The silver veins were running dry, and so were the people's hopes. Eli Chambers stood in his barn, counting the ribs showing through his cattle's hides. 3 years since consumption took his wife, Sarah. 3 years of watching his ranch crumble piece by piece. The feed was nearly gone, and so was his money. His breath formed clouds in the frigid air. The mortgage payment loomed like a thundercloud. Mayor Abigail Hardwick had already made her interest known. She wanted his land for the railroad expansion that might never come. The wind howled through gaps in the barn walls. Eli pulled his coat tighter. His neighbors avoided him now. They whispered behind their hands at the general store. Failed rancher, broken man. It was only a matter of time. Across the valley, the Whitmore mansion sat dark and empty. 3 days ago, the wealthy family had vanished in the night. Creditors were calling in debts. Scandal followed the Whitmores like smoke from a grass fire. Eli had worked for old Whitmore years back, before his marriage. He knew about the gambling debts and questionable business dealings. Clara Mae Benson had worked there too, keeping that kitchen running like clockwork. Best cook in 3 counties, everyone said. Nobody had seen Clara Mae since the Whitmores fled. Most folks assumed she'd gone with them to Denver or beyond. The loyal ones always did. The blizzard struck that evening without warning. Snow fell in sheets, erasing the world beyond Eli's windows. He checked his livestock twice, battling wind that threatened to knock him flat. The cold bit through his gloves like wolf teeth. On his final trip to secure the barn, something caught his eye. A dark shape huddled behind the Whitmore estate's woodshed. Eli squinted through the driving snow. Too big for an animal. Too still for anything living. He fought his way across the valley. Each step was a battle against knee-deep drifts. The wind screamed like a banshee, stealing his breath and freezing his lungs. Clara Mae lay curled against the woodshed wall. Ice crystals clung to her dark skin. Her lips had turned blue as winter sky. A leather journal clutched against her chest, along with something that gleamed silver. Eli dropped to his knees beside her. Her pulse fluttered weak as a bird's wing. Frostbite darkened her fingertips. Another hour, and she'd be beyond saving. He lifted her carefully. She weighed nothing, all bones and tattered dress. The journey back to his cabin became a nightmare of stumbling steps and driving snow. Clara Mae's breathing grew shallower with each passing minute. His cabin felt like heaven after the frozen hell outside. Eli built up the fire until it roared. He wrapped Clara Mae in every blanket he owned. Her skin was cold as marble, her breathing barely visible. Through the night, he worked to save her. Warm broth spooned between blue lips, gentle massage to restore circulation. He'd learned these skills during the war, tending wounded soldiers in winter camps. Clara Mae stirred near dawn. Her eyes opened slowly, focusing on his weathered face with confusion. The leather journal lay open beside her. Eli had glimpsed the contents while checking for injuries, page after page of recipes, but also business calculations, supplier lists, profit margins. This wasn't just a cookbook, it was a complete restaurant operation manual. The silver object was a locket, dented but intact. Clara May's fingers closed around it the moment consciousness returned. Whatever it contained, she wasn't ready to share. She spoke in whispers at first. The Whitmores had fled like thieves in the night. 15 years of faithful service, and they'd left her behind without wages or warning. The larder was empty, the coal bin bare. She'd had nowhere to go. Eli made coffee and listened. Clara May had always seemed content in the Whitmore kitchen, taking orders and keeping quiet. But the journal told a different story. Someone with business sense had written those pages, someone who understood profit and loss better than most men. The storm raged for 2 more days. During the long hours, Clara May's strength returned. She moved around the cabin with quiet efficiency, improving meals from Eli's meager supplies. Her presence changed the space from a bachelor's retreat to something resembling a home. Word traveled fast in a small town, even during a blizzard. Sheriff Dalton Granger arrived the morning the snow stopped. His badge caught the weak sunlight as he stood in Eli's doorway. The sheriff's message was clear without being spoken. Appearances mattered in Ironwood Creek. A white man and a colored woman under the same roof would set tongues wagging. Trouble would follow like night follows day. Mayor Hardwick arrived that afternoon with 2 other town council members. They spoke in careful, measured tones about propriety and community standards. Clara May kept busy in the kitchen, but Eli saw her shoulders tense with each veiled threat. After they left, Clara May sat across from Eli at his small table. The firelight played across her weathered face. She was older than him by maybe 10 years, but her eyes held depths he was only beginning to understand. She opened the leather journal to a page near the back. Numbers filled the columns in neat handwriting. Savings, hidden money, $800 accumulated over 15 years of service. Her proposal was simple and shocking. Partnership. Her money and culinary skills, his property and labor. They could build something neither could achieve alone. Eli stared at the figures. $800 represented more money than he'd seen in 3 years. Combined with his land, it could indeed start a legitimate business. Clara May's reputation as a cook was legendary throughout the territory. The risks were enormous. The town already suspected impropriety. A business partnership would only fuel the gossip. Mayor Hardwick would use it against them both. His ranch could be lost. Clara May could be run out of town. But the alternative was slow starvation for him, and homelessness for her. Outside, snow began falling again. The wind picked up, rattling the windows like skeletal fingers. 2 outcasts sat in the lamplight, contemplating a future that could lift them both up or destroy them completely. The decision would reshape everything they thought they knew about survival, success, and the price of dignity in an unforgiving world. Clara May spread her life savings across Eli's kitchen table. $800 in bills and coins, accumulated through 15 years of careful scrimp and sacrifice. Each dollar represented meals skipped, luxuries denied, hope preserved against impossible odds. Eli stared at the money. More cash than he'd seen since before Sarah's medical bills consumed everything. His hands trembled as he touched the worn bills. This could save his ranch, his future, his dignity. The leather journal revealed Clara May's true genius. She documented every successful meal, every cost calculation, every supplier relationship from her years with the Whitmores. But more than recipes filled these pages: business projections, customer preferences, profit margins calculated to the penny. She'd been planning this for years. Clara May had learned her craft from Henri Bouchard, a New Orleans chef who'd worked for the wealthy Morrison family in Kansas. Henri taught her the secrets of French cooking, adapted for frontier tastes: rich gravies, perfectly seasoned meats, breads that drew customers from miles away. But Clara May possessed something Henri never had. She understood frontier business. 15 years of watching the Whitmores conduct deals had taught her about contracts, negotiations, and the delicate art of profit maximization. Eli brought his own skills to the partnership. Railroad construction in his younger days had taught him carpentry, logistics, and the art of feeding hungry workers efficiently. He knew how to build kitchens that could serve dozens quickly. He understood the rhythm of manual labor and when workers needed sustenance most. Together, they began planning Clara May's kitchen. The location was perfect. Eli's property sat along the main road between the mines and town. Travelers passed by daily, many hungry and willing to pay for quality food. The existing barn could be converted into dining space. A new kitchen could be built adjacent. Clara May moved into the small cabin behind Eli's house. Propriety demanded the separation, but their working relationship required proximity. She rose before dawn to plan menus and calculate supplies. He spent daylight hours gathering materials and beginning construction. Mayor Hardwick struck back within the week. The general store suddenly refused to sell them lumber. The hardware merchant claimed inventory shortages when Clara May needed cooking equipment. Bank President Jefferson Mills suggested Eli might want to reconsider any hasty business ventures, but the mayor had underestimated frontier pragmatism. Miners and drifters cared nothing for social politics. They wanted good food at fair prices. Word spread that Clara May's legendary cooking might return to the territory. Supply problems forced creativity. Eli traded labor for materials, helping other ranchers in exchange for lumber and nails. Clara May negotiated directly with traveling merchants, bypassing local prejudices with superior business sense. The construction took 3 weeks of back-breaking work. Eli's carpentry skills proved sharp despite years of disuse. Clara May's organizational abilities kept the project moving efficiently. She managed supplies, coordinated deliveries, and planned every detail of the restaurant's operation. During long evenings, they shared stories that revealed their true characters. Clara May had been born free in Kansas, educated by Methodist missionaries who recognized her exceptional intelligence. She could read, write, and calculate better than most frontier businessmen. Eli confessed his deepest shame. Sarah's death wasn't just tragedy, it was failure. He'd lacked money for proper medical care. The local doctor had demanded payment up front for the medicines that might have saved her. Pride had prevented him from begging, and Sarah had died while he wrestled with his conscience. Clara May understood abandonment from a different angle. The Whitmores had seemed like family after 15 years of faithful service. She'd cooked their meals, nursed their children through illness, kept their secrets. Their midnight flight had shattered her faith in loyalty's rewards. Both carried wounds that made them fierce protectors of their unlikely partnership. The restaurant began taking shape. Clara May designed the kitchen with scientific precision. Every pot had its place. Every ingredient was organized for maximum efficiency. The dining area featured sturdy tables built to withstand hard use by rough customers. Clara May's business genius showed in the details. She planned 3 different menu levels, simple, filling meals for miners on tight budgets, quality dinners for traveling merchants with money to spend, special occasion fare for the town's remaining wealthy families. The pricing strategy was brilliant. Lower costs than the hotel dining room, but higher quality than boarding house slop. Clara May understood that frontier customers would pay premium prices for genuinely superior food. Eli's contribution went beyond carpentry. He knew the rhythms of frontier life. Which days brought travelers through town? When miners received their pay? How weather affected customer flow? His insights helped Clara May refine her business model. Opposition continued mounting. Anonymous notes appeared warning them to abandon their plans. Someone scattered nails on the road leading to their property. Clara May's suppliers received visits from unknown men suggesting they might reconsider their agreements. But support was building too. Old ranch hands remembered Eli's reliability from his younger days. Travelers who'd tasted Clara May's cooking years ago asked when the restaurant would open. Even some townspeople quietly expressed interest in dining at the new establishment. The partnership deepened beyond business necessity. Clara May's presence softened Eli's bitter edges. Her quiet confidence reminded him of his own worth. Eli's steady support gave Clara May security she'd never experienced. Their mutual respect grew into genuine friendship. Construction neared completion as spring arrived. Clara May's kitchen would seat 30 customers comfortably. The kitchen could serve twice that number if necessary. Everything was ready except for the final challenge. Opening day would determine their future. Success would establish them as legitimate business people worthy of respect. Failure would vindicate their critics and likely destroy both their lives. The entire town watched and waited. Some hoped for vindication of their prejudices. Others anticipated the return of Clara May's extraordinary cooking. All understood that something significant was about to happen in Ironwood Creek. Clara May polished her silver locket as she surveyed their completed work. Whatever secrets it contained remained hidden, but her determination was visible in every carefully planned detail of their restaurant. The partnership that began with desperation had transformed into something powerful enough to challenge every assumption about success, worth, and possibility in the unforgiving frontier. Clara May's kitchen opened on a Tuesday morning in late April. The first customer was a grizzled prospector named Pete, who'd ridden 20 miles after hearing rumors about the legendary cook's return. He ordered the full breakfast and paid without complaint. The second customer was Sheriff Granger, clearly present to observe rather than dine. He sat in the corner nursing coffee, watching every interaction with suspicious eyes. By noon, word had spread through the mining camps. Clara May's biscuits were light as clouds. Her gravy was rich enough to make grown men weep. The portions were generous and the prices fair. Miners began arriving in steady streams. The town's reaction split cleanly down social lines. Working men embraced the restaurant immediately. The food was exceptional, the atmosphere welcoming, and Clara May treated every customer with dignified respect. Eli managed the front efficiently, taking orders and handling money with quiet competence. Mayor Hardwick organized a boycott among the respectable families. They spread whispers about impropriety and unwholesome associations. Several prominent merchants publicly declared they would never patronize the establishment. But frontier economics cared nothing for social prejudice. Hungry people wanted good food. Clara May delivered both quality and value that no competitor could match. The boycott failed to stop their growing success. Clara May's extraordinary skills became legendary within days. Her roast beef fell apart at the touch of a fork. Her apple pies disappeared before they could cool. Traveling merchants began timing their journeys to coincide with dinner service. Eli proved equally valuable in front of house operations. His quiet dignity commanded respect from rough customers who might otherwise cause trouble. He remembered names, preferences, and personal details that made regulars feel welcome. The partnership worked seamlessly. The kitchen operated with military precision. Clara May had designed every workflow for maximum efficiency. She could serve 30 customers simultaneously, without breaking stride. Her organizational genius showed in every perfectly timed meal. But success brought new dangers. Anonymous, threatening notes began appearing daily. Someone dumped refuse in their water well. Their supply deliveries faced mysterious delays. A broken window appeared one morning with no explanation. Mayor Hardwick escalated her campaign. She pressured the bank to call in Eli's mortgage early. She suggested to territorial authorities that the restaurant might be operating without proper licenses. She spread rumors about health violations and moral corruption. The attacks only strengthened Clara May and Eli's resolve. They installed stronger locks, found alternative suppliers, and documented every incident for legal protection. Their partnership had survived worse storms than small-town politics. Clara May's past began revealing itself through her cooking. Her cornbread recipe came from childhood in Kansas, learned from former slaves who'd perfected it during hardship. Her sophisticated sauces reflected Henri Bouchard's French training adapted for frontier ingredients. Every dish told a story of survival and excellence. Eli's background enriched their operation in unexpected ways. His railroad experience taught him crowd management during busy periods. His knowledge of seasonal work patterns helped Clara May plan inventory and staffing. His reputation for honest dealing attracted customers who valued integrity. The restaurant became a meeting place for the town's working class. Miners shared news over morning coffee. Ranchers conducted business over hearty dinners. Travelers exchanged information about trail conditions and opportunities. Clara May's kitchen was becoming the heart of a community. Opposition forces grew desperate. Someone attempted to start a fire in their storage shed late one night. Only Eli's quick response with water buckets prevented serious damage. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. Their enemies would escalate beyond mere harassment. Clara May never spoke of fear, but Eli noticed her clutching the silver locket more frequently. Whatever memories it contained provided strength during their darkest moments. She refused to discuss its contents, but the locket clearly held deep personal significance. Their financial success exceeded every projection. Clara May's conservative estimates proved wildly pessimistic. The restaurant earned more in its first month than Eli's ranch had generated in the previous year. They were becoming genuinely prosperous. Word spread beyond Ironwood Creek. Newspapers in Denver mentioned the exceptional Frontier restaurant. Food enthusiasts made special trips to experience Clara May's legendary cuisine. Their reputation was growing throughout the territory. The social impact was equally significant. Clara May commanded respect through pure competence. Her dignity and business acumen challenged every stereotype about her race and gender. She was proving that excellence transcended social prejudice. Eli's transformation was equally dramatic. The broken widower had become a successful businessman. His confidence returned along with his financial security. Neighbors who'd once pitied him now sought his advice about ventures and opportunities. But the locket remained Clara May's most closely guarded secret. She wore it constantly, often touching it during quiet moments. Eli respected her privacy, but sensed the object contained memories too precious or painful for sharing. The partnership evolved beyond mere business cooperation. Clara May and Eli had become genuine friends who trusted each other completely. Their shared struggles created bonds stronger than family ties. They protected each other's dignity and dreams with fierce loyalty. Spring turned to summer as Clara May's kitchen established itself as an institution. Regular customers became like extended family. Travelers planned routes around mealtimes. Even some former opponents quietly began patronizing the restaurant. Mayor Hardwick's political position weakened as the restaurant's success became undeniable. Her boycott had failed. Her harassment campaigns had backfired. The town's economy was actually improving thanks to increased visitor traffic, but Clara May sensed larger forces gathering. Her success was attracting attention from beyond Ironwood Creek. Strangers had been asking questions about her background and history. Someone was investigating her past with purpose that felt both hopeful and threatening. The silver locket grew heavier with each passing day. 30 years of secrets pressed against her chest like a physical weight. Soon, she feared, those secrets would demand acknowledgement. Eli noticed her growing tension but respected her need for privacy. Their partnership had taught him that some wounds required time before healing could begin. The restaurant thrived as summer peaked, but both partners sensed that change was approaching like a distant storm gathering strength. The stranger arrived on a Wednesday morning in July. Well dressed in a tailored suit that marked him as city money, he ordered breakfast and observed everything with calculating eyes. He asked no questions but listened carefully to conversations around him. Clara May noticed him immediately. 30 years of reading people in kitchens had taught her to spot trouble before it announced itself. This man wasn't here for her cooking. He was studying their operation with the intensity of someone gathering information. Eli served the stranger's meal with polite efficiency. The man ate slowly, clearly extending his time in the restaurant. He left generous payment and disappeared without explanation. But Clara May felt his presence like a shadow that lingered after sunset. The stranger returned 3 more times that week. Always alone, always observing, always asking indirect questions about the restaurant's history and ownership. Other customers began noticing his repeated visits and odd behavior. Clara May's success had transformed the entire valley's economy. Travelers now planned stops specifically for her legendary meals. Local suppliers prospered from increased demand. Even competing businesses benefited from the additional foot traffic her restaurant generated. The transformation reached beyond economics. Clara May had proven that excellence commanded respect regardless of social prejudice. Her dignified professionalism challenged every assumption about race and capability. She'd become a symbol of possibility that inspired others. Young women, particularly those from modest backgrounds, began seeking her advice about business and independence. Clara May shared practical knowledge about managing money, dealing with difficult customers, and maintaining dignity under pressure. She was becoming an unexpected mentor figure. Eli's renovation extended to the entire property. The restaurant's success provided capital for improvements he'd dreamed about for years: new fences, rebuilt barns, improved livestock facilities. His ranch was becoming the finest operation in the valley. Their partnership had evolved into something resembling family. Clara May and Eli protected each other's interests with fierce loyalty. They shared meals, discussed problems, and celebrated successes together. Their friendship transcended the business relationship that had brought them together. But the mysterious stranger's presence unsettled Clara May deeply. She began touching her silver locket more frequently, as if drawing strength from its hidden contents. Her sleep became restless, and Eli noticed her scanning the dining room constantly during service. The stranger's identity became clear during his 5th visit. He introduced himself as James Whitmore, Jr., son of Clara May's former employers. His parents had died in a train accident while fleeing their creditors. He'd come to settle their estate's remaining obligations. James brought disturbing news. His father's business records contained numerous references to Clara May that extended far beyond normal employer-employee relationships. Legal documents, correspondence, and financial records all suggested deeper connections than anyone had known. The most shocking revelation involved Clara May's legal status. The Whitmore family had apparently served as her sponsors or guardians in some capacity for decades. Papers existed that granted them unusual authority over her affairs, though the exact nature remained unclear. Clara May's reaction to these revelations was complex. Relief mixed with fear as 30 years of careful secrecy faced potential exposure. The silver locket seemed to burn against her chest as memories she'd suppressed for decades demanded acknowledgement. James explained his true mission. He wasn't just settling his parents' estate. He was working on behalf of someone who'd been searching for Clara May for many years. Someone with both the resources and determination to find answers to questions that had haunted him since childhood. The restaurant continued thriving despite Clara May's growing anxiety. Her professional competence never wavered, but Eli noticed subtle changes in her demeanor. She was preparing herself for revelations that would transform everything they'd built together. Local opposition had largely collapsed under the weight of their undeniable success. Even Mayor Hardwick had ceased her harassment campaigns as the restaurant's economic benefits became impossible to ignore. Former enemies now grudgingly acknowledged their legitimacy. Sheriff Granger had become a regular customer and unofficial protector. His presence deterred troublemakers, and his endorsement encouraged other respectable citizens to patronize the establishment. The law was finally on their side. But James Whitmore Jr.'s presence suggested that their greatest challenges lay ahead. The comfortable world Clara May and Eli had built was about to face forces beyond local prejudice or political opposition. The past was demanding recognition. Clara May's behavior grew increasingly erratic as she wrestled with decisions about disclosure. The success they'd achieved could be threatened by revelations about her history, but continued secrecy might prove equally dangerous if determined investigators persisted. The silver locket contained photographs and documents that could explain everything. Clara May had carried these precious memories for 30 years, never daring to hope they might lead to reunion. Now that possibility seemed both miraculous and terrifying. Eli sensed his partner's internal struggle, but respected her need for privacy. Their friendship had taught him that some burdens couldn't be shared until the person carrying them was ready. He offered silent support while waiting for Clara May to make her decision. James scheduled a private meeting for the following Sunday. He promised to explain everything about his investigation and the person who'd hired him. Clara May would finally learn whether her deepest hopes or worst fears were about to be realized. The restaurant operated normally as the weekend approached, but both partners knew their lives stood on the edge of dramatic change. Success had made them complacent about external threats. Now, forces beyond their control were gathering to reshape everything they'd built. Clara May spent Saturday evening alone with her locket, finally prepared to confront 30 years of carefully guarded secrets. The truth would either complete her redemption or destroy everything she'd fought to achieve. Sunday morning dawned clear and bright, promising answers that would transform 2 lives forever. James Whitmore, Jr. arrived at Clara May's cabin on Sunday morning, carrying a leather satchel, and wearing the expression of a man bearing momentous news. Clara May sat across from him at her small table, the silver locket open in her trembling hands for the first time in Eli's presence. Inside the locket was a photograph of a baby boy, perhaps 6 months old, with Clara May's distinctive eyes and gentle expression. The image was faded but carefully preserved, wrapped in a piece of silk that had protected it for 3 decades. James spoke carefully, measuring each word. He wasn't working for the Whitmore estate. He represented Thomas Benson, a successful railroad executive in Denver who'd been searching for his birth mother for over 15 years. The description and timeline matched Clara May perfectly. Clara May's world shattered and reformed in the space of a heartbeat. The baby she'd been forced to surrender 30 years ago had grown into a successful businessman with the resources to find her. Thomas had hired private investigators across 3 territories, following every lead and checking every record. The story emerged in painful fragments. Clara May had been barely 17 when Thomas was born. Unmarried, penniless, and facing social ostracism in Kansas, she'd been forced to surrender her son to avoid starvation. The arrangement was supposed to provide him with education and opportunities she couldn't offer. The Whitmores had facilitated the adoption through their business connections. They'd promised to help Clara May track her son's progress over the years. Instead, they'd used her desperation to secure her loyal service, knowing she'd never leave while hoping for news about Thomas. For 15 years, Clara May had believed the Whitmores were her only connection to her lost son. Their promises of eventual reunion had kept her working for minimal wages and maximum devotion. She'd saved every penny, planning for the day she might afford to search for Thomas herself. James revealed the devastating truth about the Whitmores' deception. They'd known Thomas's location for years but had concealed the information to maintain Clara May's dependency. Her son had been raised by a wealthy merchant family in Denver who'd given him excellent education and business training. Thomas had begun searching for his birth mother the moment he turned 21. His adoptive family had provided all available information, but the trail had been deliberately obscured by the Whitmores' machinations. Only their recent deaths had made the truth accessible. Clara May wept for the first time since Eli had known her. 30 years of suppressed grief and hope poured out as she realized how thoroughly she'd been manipulated. The Whitmores had stolen decades of potential contact between mother and son. But James brought miraculous news along with the painful revelations. Thomas was traveling to Ironwood Creek immediately upon receiving confirmation of his mother's identity. He would arrive within the week, ending their 30-year separation at last. The railroad executive's success exceeded even Clara May's wildest dreams. Thomas owned substantial business interests throughout Colorado Territory. His wealth and influence could transform not just Clara May's life, but the entire community's future. Eli struggled to process the magnitude of these revelations. His business partner was about to become the mother of one of the territory's most prominent businessmen. Their humble restaurant would soon be connected to Denver's commercial elite. Thomas's search had been exhaustive and expensive. He'd employed multiple detective agencies, checked countless records, and followed hundreds of false leads. His determination to find Clara May had never wavered despite years of disappointment. The reunion would vindicate Clara May's decades of hope and sacrifice, but it also raised complicated questions about her future. Would she choose to move to Denver with Thomas, abandoning the life she'd built with Eli? Would their successful partnership survive such dramatic change? James explained Thomas's character and values. Despite his wealth and status, he remained humble and generous. His adoptive family had raised him with strong moral principles and deep appreciation for hard work. Clara May would be proud of the man her son had become. The timing created additional complications. Clara May's kitchen had become integral to Ironwood Creek's economy. Her departure would devastate not just the restaurant, but the entire community that had grown to depend on the prosperity she'd generated. Eli faced his own difficult choices. Clara May's reunion with Thomas would fundamentally alter their partnership. He could lose his closest friend and business collaborator to a world of wealth and privilege he'd never be able to enter. But Clara May's joy outweighed every other consideration. The dream she'd carried for 30 years was about to become reality. Her son was successful, prosperous, and had never stopped loving the mother he'd never known. Thomas's arrival would also shift the valley's political dynamics dramatically. Mayor Hardwick and other opponents would face a powerful adversary with resources they couldn't match. Clara May would finally have protection beyond her own competence and dignity. The week of waiting stretched endlessly as Clara May prepared for the most important moment of her life. She cleaned obsessively, cooked elaborate meals nobody ate, and stared constantly toward the road that would bring Thomas home. Eli supported her through the emotional turmoil while wrestling with his own fears about their future. Their partnership had saved both their lives, but it might not survive the transformations approaching like a freight train gathering speed. The restaurant continued operating normally, but both partners understood that everything was about to change. Success had brought them security and respect, but it had also attracted attention that would reshape their quiet world forever. Clara May clutched the baby photograph and waited for her son to complete their interrupted story. Thomas Benson arrived on a Thursday afternoon in a polished carriage that drew stares from every person on Ironwood Creek's main street. Tall and dignified at 30 years old, he possessed Clara May's intelligent eyes and gentle bearing, despite his expensive clothes and confident manner. The reunion took place in Clara May's small cabin behind the restaurant. Mother and son stood facing each other across 30 years of separation, both trembling with emotions too powerful for words. Clara May touched his face with wonder, confirming that her dreams had become flesh and blood reality. Thomas had inherited his mother's intelligence and business acumen. His railroad investments and commercial ventures had made him wealthy beyond most people's imagination, but success hadn't diminished his desire to find the woman who'd given him life and sacrificed everything for his future. Mayor Hardwick arrived at the restaurant that evening with half the town council, planning one final assault on Clara May and Eli's legitimacy. She'd prepared accusations of fraud, impropriety, and community disruption that would justify shutting down their operation permanently. The confrontation unfolded in the restaurant's main dining room before a packed audience of curious townspeople. Hardwick stood before the crowd, her voice rising as she demanded that decent people reject the corruption poisoning their community's moral foundation. Thomas entered quietly during the mayor's speech. His presence transformed the atmosphere immediately as people recognized the expensive suit, confident bearing, and unmistakable authority of serious money. Whispers rippled through the crowd as speculation about his identity spread. Hardwick continued her attack, unaware that the balance of power had shifted fundamentally. She accused Clara May of deception and demanded that the town choose between respectability and moral degradation. Her voice reached fever pitch as she called for immediate action. Thomas stepped forward and introduced himself with quiet dignity. Thomas Benson, railroad executive from Denver, son of Clara May Benson, and investor, prepared to commit $50,000 to Ironwood Creek's economic development. The room fell silent as the implications registered. Hardwick's face drained of color as she realized the magnitude of her miscalculation. She'd been attacking the mother of one of Colorado Territory's most successful businessmen. Her political career evaporated in the space of a single sentence. Thomas outlined his investment plans with the precision of a man accustomed to command. Railroad spur construction to improve transportation, mining equipment modernization to revive the failing industry, commercial development to transform Ironwood Creek into a regional hub of prosperity. Every investment depended on one condition: his mother and her business partner must receive the respect and support their success had earned. Any community that couldn't appreciate Clara May's contributions didn't deserve his family's investment or confidence. The town's response was immediate and unanimous. People who'd whispered behind their hands now rushed forward with apologies and praise. Business owners who'd refused to sell supplies now begged for Thomas's consideration. The social transformation was complete and irreversible. Clara May watched the proceedings with quiet satisfaction. 30 years of patient dignity had led to this moment of absolute vindication. Her worth was finally recognized not through charity or sympathy, but through the undeniable evidence of her character and achievements. Sheriff Granger stepped forward to officially welcome Thomas to the community. As interim mayor following Hardwick's hasty resignation, He promised full cooperation with all development plans. The law would protect the Benson family's interests with complete dedication. Thomas made his most important announcement last. Despite his wealth and Denver connections, Clara May had chosen to remain in Ironwood Creek. She valued the life she'd built with Eli more than the luxury Thomas could provide in the city. The decision surprised everyone except Eli, who'd understood Clara May's character better than she'd understood herself. She'd found family in their partnership and community in their shared struggle. Success meant nothing without the relationships that had made it possible. Thomas respected his mother's choice completely. He established a permanent residence in Ironwood Creek, dividing his time between Denver business interests and the community that had embraced Clara May during her greatest need. Clara May's kitchen expanded into the finest restaurant between Denver and Salt Lake City. Thomas's investment provided capital for a grand building that could seat over 100 customers. Clara May's reputation drew visitors from across the territory. Eli became the restaurant's general manager and Thomas's trusted local representative. His transformation from failed rancher to respected businessman was complete. He'd found purpose, prosperity, and family in the most unlikely circumstances. The railroad spur construction began immediately. Thomas's crews worked through autumn to connect Ironwood Creek with the main Denver line. The town's economic revival exceeded everyone's most optimistic projections. 1 year after Thomas's arrival, Ironwood Creek had become a thriving commercial center. The mines operated profitably with modern equipment. New businesses opened monthly to serve increased traffic. Population doubled as opportunity attracted settlers. Clara May and Eli spent their evenings on the restaurant's front porch, watching their transformed community with quiet satisfaction. They'd started as outcasts facing social destruction. They'd become pillars of a prosperous, integrated society that valued character over prejudice. Thomas visited regularly, bringing his wife and children to spend time with the grandmother they adored. Clara May's cabin filled with laughter and love she'd never dared imagine possible. The silver locket remained Clara May's most treasured possession, but it no longer contained her only connection to happiness. She'd built a life rich with relationships, purpose, and respect that no external force could destroy. Their story became legend throughout Colorado territory. Two abandoned souls had found each other during a blizzard and built something greater than either could have achieved alone. Their partnership proved that dignity, competence, and mutual respect could overcome any obstacle society placed in their path. The mountain winds still howled through winter nights, but they no longer carried loneliness or despair. They whispered stories of redemption, second chances, and the unbreakable bonds forged between people who refused to surrender their dreams to other people's limitations.